these aspects to us, and we are hoping to have an engaging and lively discussion that will be moderated by Professor Arjuna Parakrama after the presentations by each panelist.
So without much ado, because we have a lot on our plate, technology, artificial intelligence, cyber threats, implications for governance, democracy, human rights, and election integrity. We have all this at the kitchen sink, so I think we need the time that we can get. Everybody will have something here, and this is of course cutting edge.
Digital technology, as you know, is very, very young, maybe 75-100 years old in the current form of digital technology. Yet within a very short time, it has come to a point where we are on the cusp of what is called the singularity, which is when artificial general intelligence becomes possible and starts beating human intelligence. That is not, that was something that has been considered in movies, considered in books, considered in research for a very long time. But in the last, there was a paper published by Google about 6 years ago called All It Takes Is Attention, which was a transform paper. That was the one that taught how to scale intelligence using really dumb approaches, but to a massive scale. And that has created this situation where we have artificial intelligence now pretty much on par with human intelligence in many areas, and very likely to beat human intelligence in no time. So we are in an era where the rate of pace, the rate of change is accelerating exponentially in terms of what is possible with software and technology. At the same time, we are also in an era where technology is by no means limited to digital. We have things like biotechnology, this CRISPR-based gene editing. On the other side, we have nanotechnology and being able to control things at the molecular level. We have all kinds of things that are coming together at a time when you put all this together, we are not that far from having a robot that can communicate to us perfectly naturally and can do everything a human being can do. And a lot more, because it's a robot, it's got a lot more strength than we have. So lots of things are coming, and I think we're in a very interesting era. And at the same time, we're in an era where the transformative impact of that can and will unfortunately be very uneven on society on one side, and on the other side, potentially very damaging. It is if you read Lord Harari's material about Homo sapiens, this is a human being, Homo sapien ending era we are in, where the next evolution is going to happen. It's not going to be our version of it, it's another version. So it's a really interesting time. And on the other side, we are making space accessible. Right? We can get out from here now, almost. That's if you really read the SpaceX mission statement, it's very simple: make humanity an interplanetary species. So we are in and that technology is also coming to fruition very, very fast. So it's a really interesting time, and the impact of things of this stuff on governance and elections and education and so forth is going to be really fun.
So this Sanjeev brought up this whole thing about AI and brings the question, what is AI? I mean, at this point it's somewhat of a not a very useful phrase. It was very useful at the time because it meant to relate that kind of refers to a bunch of technologies actually unrelated, well related, but not a technology. And since I've been working on something called language models, it turns out that for many people, AI is now a language model. Though actually AI is a lot of technologies that have come together to what we know today. So I think the turning point was not really this ChatGPT and so on. The turning point was actually moving away from, there was a big problem in encoding or encapsulating human knowledge in a computer. It was called the knowledge representation bottleneck. You had to get an expert to say what they know, and then somehow encoded in a computer. And so the moment that people got out of that being a requirement, we had that was some symbolic computation. The most famous of them is, of course, neural networks. Now, for some people, neural networks are nothing but matrix multiplication, right? I mean, and that's, if you ask a mathematician, that's what it is. But it had to be kind of marketed in this nice way. And so these neural networks allowed us to do what is called learning, instead of having to be taught for a system to start learning. And then, so over the past, let's say, over the past decade, we were these neural networks, it was very difficult to compute layered neural networks. So they were layered, and these are what are called deep networks or deep neural networks. And that's what gave rise to something called the transformer, which transformed a lot of things. Right? So ChatGPT, for instance, is a transformer. Fundamentally, two types of models came out of this transformer. One type that allowed us to solve various problems about classifying things and that type of thing. Another, which is one that is now in the public domain, able to generate text. And that's the one that is called the imagination of the public, because it was kind of put out there by a company called OpenAI. So today, it's almost like magic for some people when they see this. I think Arthur Clarke had said that any technology that is sophisticated enough is indistinguishable from magic. And that's what has happened with AI. I mean, this is a particular type of AI called generative AI. That's AI for the public. And generative AI is actually AI for the public. And so these transformer models, so they were initially made for generating text, right? Which means you start the story and then tell the system to generate. And it is able to tell a nice story. It became two-way dialogue things at some point. And those same models are now later used to generate images. And now related models can also generate audio. So somebody's voice. And together with what I call deep fakes. That means you can do some great things, like you can go to a museum and have Einstein talking to you, deep fake with his own voice and with his reasoning. So good users, and then of course I think we are all we hear much more all the bad users, and we can talk about that in our discussion. I think the key thing there is, how do we make more people aware? Any technology that is with a few people is dangerous. Like we saw with the financial crisis, right? Only a few people were conversant in stocks and shares and hedging and all these things. And that's where we ended up. And same thing can happen here, I think, if there are a few people. So how do we kind of make everybody aware of these technologies? That's one of my main issues.
First of all, I want to thank my esteemed panel. It's certainly an honor and a pleasure for me to be sharing the stage with these two gentlemen. The Institute, but as well as the Institute for coming up with this particular topic at this particular time. Because I want to just emphasize to you all why this topic is important. This is the Time magazine, rather The Economist this week. And you can see that it's talking about how artificial intelligence will affect elections. When Gary Kasparov first saw what Alpha Zero could do, and basically beat all the chess champions with some ludicrous moves. I know Professor Arjun is a chess fan. Professor, they used to, the model used to give up its queen first couple of years. Crazy. Gary Kasparov saw what the model could do and noted that the world of chess had been shaken to its very fundamentals by the way that this particular AI model moved and this particular AI model did. What we are seeing today, as some of these esteemed speakers have told you, we have now entered the age of consumer AI, as the economist calls it. AI is now accessible to the consumers in a very apparent way. AI was always there in the background. For example, the last decade when you were doing a Google search, AI was there in the background, helping you, giving you suggestions, and so on. If you ever use Spotify, your music recommendations, there's an AI engine running in the background. If you watch YouTube, the next video that is suggested to you, there is an AI element working in the background. What has happened today is all of that collective efforts have now brought fruition. And don't forget, we live in an age where all of you, from your waking moment to your sleeping moment, put out terabytes of data in your social media, the applications you use, the platforms you use, and that data has been used to train and sort of teach these models. And the culmination of that is what you see, as Dr. mentioned, as ChatGPT, as Midjourney, and so many other things now. I think everybody has plugged AI into its product portfolio. You will continue to see that. But now we've come to a point where we as humans now are asking ourselves, what makes us human? What is it that makes us tick? Because this is a very pertinent question, and I hope Professor we can discuss this further in the Q&A. Because it does come to that point when machines can do some things that we can do. When artificial intelligence can sing and draw and create songs, what would make us human? And I think this is a question that we need to answer as all humanity. And our petty differences and our petty fights really don't apply to a machine that is cold, hard and calculating, and probably will outthink us in a couple of months. ChatGPT 4, I'm told, is its IQ is about 160. Albert Einstein's IQ is about 165. So, the ChatGPT 5 theoretically will be smarter than Albert Einstein. I want you to just let that sink in. Smarter than the smartest man alive, all day. And this is the opportunity and the threat that we are faced with. Once in a generation, it will change everything. How we work, how we play, how governments work, how policy is made, everything. So hopefully, I look forward to a stimulating discussion, because these are the factors that we have to ask ourselves. And no one is safe. No one can say that, oh, my industry will not be affected, or my industry is relatively safe. I beg to differ. Because the way things are evolving and progressing, it's not only AI, like Sanjeev mentioned. We have robotics coming a long way. It's not conceivable that you have an advanced AI which will be put into a robot. And of course, that is the way. So with that thought, and I hope I left you with some pondering and lingering thoughts, I'll hand it back to our excellent moderator, Professor. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think we have a taste of the things to come. Each of our panelists will be able to, in just a few minutes, tell you both what is shared and what is different in terms of their interests and the expertise that they bring to bear. So let me facilitate the discussion by asking each in turn one question, which I hope will then give you food for thought and then try to provoke the kinds of questions from you. Sanjeev, let me start with you. I think you've been very involved in the education side of it. How do you see digital evolution, including AI of course, affecting the teaching aspect of education, both positively and negatively?
Education fundamentally is about getting somebody to understand and learn something new, something that they were aware of, some experience, some knowledge, some insights, and so on. So the teaching aspect plays a critical role, and we know the impact a good teacher has on a person's passion for a subject is almost infinite. I was very lucky. I had great teachers when I was in school. You meet particular teachers who influence you in a way that makes you want to delve into that subject because of that teacher. So inspiration is a major part of what a teacher can do to a student. And of course there's like transferring knowledge, giving information, being a mentor, being a supporter. There's all kinds of stuff like that, right? But and as we know, we have an ongoing Sri Lanka's education system. On one side has done amazing things. We have the basic literacy, and that level is very good. And also on the positive side, we have a free education system which finds the poorest of the poor person who has the capacity and weeds them out and somehow gets them into a top class university, giving them an opportunity. Right? On the other side, it's not doing a very good job of helping the below middle kind of student, because the capacity and the distribution of resources that are applied towards helping the average student across the country is very disparate. In some places you get good support, some places you get bad support, and also money has a big part to play. If you have enough money to get private tuition and so on, you can fix the problems that you might not be getting solved in school. But if you don't have that, you're kind of left to the lecture. So we have pros and cons. On one side, fantastic, on one side, terrible. So if you look at how can we improve the terrible side of the problem, the advantage that software and AI brings is really the ability to bring digital education to another level. So we've had digital education for the masses now for 15, 20, 30 years. Places like Khan Academy, Udemy, Coursera, edX.org, all these sites. In Sri Lanka also we have various places. The Ministry of Education has a site, the universities have sites, all kinds of online, originally termed under the distance learning. Now with various sites where basically there's a content available, and you can go there and look at the content and then take an exam or do some certification and get through that part, right? In fact, the Open University architecture was the same thing. It goes back to postal delivery of that content in the Open University system. So, but all of that was one-to-many teaching. One person teaches once, everybody learns the same way. A couple of days ago, I was talking with the person who heads AI in Dialogue. In Dialogue, when you go to the phone or you have multiple packages, right? You can say you can pick the power 20, power 30, or this package and that package. So they have maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 packages. Some package manager has designed and decided is what they should sell. With software now, we have the opportunity to look at each person's usage and create them a customized package that optimizes either for the company or for the customer, or for both. We don't know, that's a delicate question. And therefore have millions of customized packages. Right? Earlier you couldn't do that because it was a human being designing one by one. You cannot have millions of the 10 million customers they have. But with software you can. So similarly with teaching, earlier teaching was always one person teaching it the way they know how to teach that material, irrespective of how the recipient wants to receive it, irrespective of the recipient's context, irrespective of the recipient's current understanding, all of that. Here's the material for today, now learn this material. Right? Maybe you don't have the fundamental algebra to learn the next level algebra, but tough luck for you because we can't fix that now. So that's the kind of change that software and basically AI, there's a talk that Sal Khan, who's a founder of Khan Academy, gave about this, about how they are working on creating a custom tutor for every student. So each student starts interacting with the software, and the software teaches whatever that you want to learn or need to learn based on syllabus or whatever, in a manner that is perfected for your style of learning, your style of capacity, your stage of learning, your state of mind, and live perfected to you. So I think that will dramatically change a lot of things that we find challenging today in delivering education. Even things like English education. Teaching English in schools in Sri Lanka is very difficult because we eliminated English medium education in the late 50s, and now we have a group of teachers who didn't study English or teaching English, and the distribution of quality English teaching is very, very disparate in the country. There's a program that Brandix has been running in Sri Lanka for a while using some Indian platform where they teach English using that software. This is a pre-AI technology they were using, and it's very effective. It's somewhat customized. But now again, the technology will enable a dramatic kind of change in how you can teach English to students, no matter what language they speak. If you haven't tried ChatGPT, you can speak to ChatGPT in Sinhalese or Tamil and ask it to write a poem in Sinhalese. It writes a perfect poem in Sinhalese. Because this is one area of specialty, and he's been working on this problem for many years. But these large language models have completely brought that to a different level. Now we don't have, so I think Microsoft Teams and so forth will do live translation from one language to another for about 40 different languages. Right? You speak in French, the other guy is in German, it will convert automatically live. Right? And fidelity is getting better and better and better. It's going to beat any human translator very, very soon if it's not already live. So we are at a era where the challenges of education and challenges of learning are really going back to, do I want to learn? Less about, do I have access to the educator, because it's just software. Right? And even the inspiration aspects can become dramatically different because there's the software, now when you combine that with video and audio and deep fakes, the software can look and feel exactly like the teacher you really like to see.
One, I'd like to ask you this question, given your expertise. AI makes decisions based mostly on previous cases, in issues directly related to the exercise of democracy. Where would you be heading? In the hands of a highly competent person, changes can be made that are virtually undetectable and difficult to prove. How do we safeguard against this in a context where there is widespread immunity and archaic or inappropriate laws?
Yes, so I think this, in the universities and in the schools, this came up, this whole area of plagiarism. And people are used to some technologies before, like Turnitin, and so they said, no problem, when this comes in, we can, apply those technologies and we can make sure that this doesn't happen. And in fact, I think OpenAI themselves started a project to, I forget what it was called, but GPT-0 or something, to detect machine-generated content. And I think now the project is stopped, as far as I know, right? Because unlike, let's say even if there is somebody who's smart enough to get it, say 90% of the time right, we have to depend on that system, right? We can't, we don't have a way of figuring out whether that system is correct. Right? So why Turnitin works is that Turnitin will say, this is the source. This was taken from this source. Whereas in generative AI, is generated dynamically. What's generated for you is not what's generated for me. And so, and there is no repository somewhere. Right? It's generated from a model. And therefore, so this has become very, very different. I mean, this going down this path is a dead end. I mean, we can't go down this path to detect something.
So Asay, let me ask you this, finishing the first stage of this. In what ways can AI be harnessed to enhance transparency, accountability, and citizen participation in government? Are there any successful studies that you know that you can highlight in this regard?
Thank you for that question, because a lot of the time we talk about the negative aspects of disinformation, operations, influence operations, or election interference. But there are certain case studies of AI being used for good. Might I also add, Professor, there is a lacuna at the moment where these large AI models are all developed by private companies, with, of course, profit in mind. there is a gap where governments need to develop their own AI models because they are sitting on a lot of information, a lot of data. Sometimes they are not digitized. And it provides an opportunity to serve the citizens better in a more transparent manner if we are to move in that direction. For example, the government of Japan has decided to use ChatGPT-enabled services in all citizen funding services. So any citizen who has any question or concern they have with the government, they can use this particular chatbot and it will answer all its questions. There's also software called Police, if I'm not mistaken, used in Hong Kong, as well as the UK Cabinet Office is going to try it out now. It basically garners opinions from a wide range of people, and the AI is able to contextualize that and provide it in very simple form. So this is fantastic for policy creation because you can get inputs from at scale from a large number of people, and then collate that in a very meaningful manner and take that as an input for policy, which is something we do see in all policies, especially here. There is also always a disconnect between the policy and what is the ground situation. So these are some of the examples that I can think of where AI is used for good, and even at its basic where it is today, there's a wonderful opportunity to use this tool for citizen engagement. Wonderful opportunity to use these tools to ensure that citizens are aware of their rights and responsibilities, because we see that communication gap anyway. Citizens are not aware of their rights sometimes. Citizens are not aware of what to do sometimes. Generally, we can get the help of AI to augment that and make sure citizens are aware, understood and transparent about what their rights and responsibilities are, what their government's rights and responsibilities are. I think that would, in fact, strengthen democracy.
We think that the worst kind of education which is going to happen in our schools, this is focused on content, getting everybody what is the information and then regurgitating that information. So then we critique that and we say we want thought, ideas, reflection. So that goes to what you said, is what is this purpose of this? How does it reflect on our humanity, on our humanness? Where do we go beyond from information, from technology, to something other than that? Because throughout
these technologies that, for instance, are creative, right? Something that you will think that, obviously that's for humans. But these things have a temperature setting which allows them to be a bit creative. And if you see some of the creative stuff it does, like poems and all these things,
I don't think we can, and we should. But on the other hand, the secretary said there is this huge problem of the morality of it. So, I don't know what we should do. I would like to give one of the examples I want to touch on this. It has now been proven by investigative agencies and has been known in the West, publicly in media, that Hillary Clinton was defeated almost entirely by a campaign carried on by a certain company called Cambridge Analytica, which used hundreds of thousands of FB accounts and Instagram accounts. They completely falsified all the positive information and negative information. It has also been true that the same company helped the Brexit campaign in Sri because it suited the country which produced that company. So that's the political side, but even personally, it is a huge dilemma. But rather than we have to ask these questions very seriously, and this kind of forum, I hope will help find solutions, at least raise issues. But if man can create such marvels, I suppose man or woman can also conjure up the solutions. The moral discipline, the moral controls prevent this from getting out of hand. How that is going to happen, that will be at the next stage, I suppose. And I hope before that things won't get out of hand. I don't know whether any of you have seen the film Oppenheimer, which is showing at the moment in Colombia. I recommend that you all see it. It's brilliant. It's about Robert Oppenheimer who created the atomic bomb. And it's 3-hour film, but just study its history. And very raises a lot of moral questions. And he was an exceptional scientist, obviously. And as they say, he was the greatest scientific creation of man. But because it gave so many other great positive possibilities, but it also gave the possibility of destroying the world. And Oppenheimer right through had this moral dilemma in his mind: should he complete his experiments because this can happen? And as soon as he finished, he was driven by the American army. They took him over to bring Los Alamos and get him locked up there with his family, and he had to do this. And he was passionate about it anyway. But within a few days, the discovery was taken out of his hand by President Truman, and Hiroshima was bombed. So, and he had huge moral questions. I think he was alive also with the terrific, whatever it is, emotional upset and his conscience in flames. So, how do we do this? At that time, obviously, we didn't have all these present day advances in technology, especially scientific technology, IT and AI and all this. But I think these discoveries itself, if looked at in another way, if you take it to another branch, perhaps could find a solution also. Oppenheimer's idea was, he was justifying himself by saying the UN had just begun to operate. The UN will find balances, checks and balances, so that countries don't go off at tangent and blast the world. And balances are that there are 5 or 6 nuclear powers in this world with the possibility of pressing the button at any time. And if there's a man like Trump, I'm sorry to say, comes into power, one never knows what will happen. Or another about future, there are many future about futures all over the world. Not least of all in our region. So, how do you balance it? Do we only expect the UN to balance it with the balance of power, or are there any scientific ways that we can discover? I don't expect you to say it, but there are many possibilities of balancing these discoveries from being misused. We know of very simple things like young children going into all kinds of bizarre websites on the internet and committing suicide, picking up guns and shooting them. Those people are encouraged to do that. So how do we control that kind of thing? So,
if I may interject, the European Union is the only one that has some sort of formulated policy on this, and they are trying to do that in 2024, where they've classified AI into 4 areas: low risk, high risk, low risk, high risk, and unacceptable risk. So, for example, AI, any AI that uses social scoring, facial recognition technology, what they use in China, for example, that is unacceptable, and that cannot be done. Now, ChatGPT, they say low risk, but certainly, maybe these are some of the things that we can look at. Another doctrine that the US military has used, because they have made the distinction of AI-assisted weapons and AI weapons. So now what they've done is they're saying we have AI-assisted weapons, which will increase the precision of certain munitions using AI. But they have taken a policy decision that in the kill chain of thought, there will always be a man at the final point. So perhaps, I mean, these are things that people are debating, as Madam said, but certainly a point that we can ponder, because if we are to use AI in war, which is completely tragic if we get to that point, but we are having war, we are completely tragic too. But certainly it's being used right now, and there's Netflix documentary called Killing Robots. So please, if you have the time after this, have a look at that. And they do give examples of certain AIs being used right now in warfare. But the United States says that that is their policy. However, they do caution. Although this is our policy, we cannot guarantee this will be everyone else's policy. So there will come a situation where the ultimate decision of killing another human being may be taken by a machine. So this is where, for example, like Dr. Wan mentioned, what the US and Russia did in the height of the Cold War, the strategic arms limitation talks. Basically, they came to the table, despite being theoretically at Cold War. They said, these are nuclear capabilities, this is what we are. So that it gave a certain degree of acceptance of what they have. And there were no surprises. So I think maybe along the same lines we can come up with some sort of agreement. Because again, humans have to sit at the table and figure this out, not machines.
Let me just add a couple of things. So Elon Musk has a company called Starlink. It's a lower orbit set of satellites around 80 kilometers high from ground, and they give high bandwidth networking globally. When the Ukraine war started, one big problem they had was there was no communication capacity for the troops. So Starlink deployed, enabled the satellites in Ukraine, and the Ukraine military was depending on Starlink for communication. And Elon did this as a freedom, do the right thing kind of thing. Then this war has dragged on. Now Elon's political orientation on this stuff is, this is stupid, we need to stop the war. So he's sending a bill to the Pentagon saying, I'm not going to give this anymore, you have to pay. And now there's a big fight going on because he's demanding an exorbitant amount of money, but there's nothing you can do because there is no other communication network in place in Ukraine for the military to operate. So apparently that he's getting paid like $80 million a day or $80 million a month or something like that now to run that network without shutting it down. Right? Another example, 2 days ago there was a tweet somebody had said, somebody put a screenshot of going to ChatGPT and asking it to make a joke about Jesus. And it jokes something, I can't remember the exact joke, it makes a joke about Jesus. Then that person asked ChatGPT, make a joke about Allah. And ChatGPT says, as an AI model, I'm not allowed to make jokes about religious figures. Right? So, now ChatGPT itself didn't draw that line. The OpenAI's political alignment of OpenAI Corporation drew the line saying you can do this, but you can't do that. So it's censorship. So in fact, Elon Musk was one of the founders of OpenAI, disagreed with them, as now starting a new company to create a brand new AI company to build a competitive offering to OpenAI. Reason being, OpenAI is not actually free. As in free, not to mean money, but free to think and generate what it wants to generate, because there's a filter layer that is introduced by reinforcement human learning and other techniques to control what it says, because this damn thing is going to say what it really thinks. And a lot of us don't want to hear what anybody else really thinks. You want the filtered version. So absolutely there is politics. And tech companies generally are left leaning. So Elon is trying to create another one that is like no leaning theory. In his Twitter is claiming the same thing. But the real politics behind tech companies is none of those things. It's capitalism, it's money. The real politics behind all of this innovation now is no longer world domination, winning a war, none of this stuff. There are billions to be made. And there is billions of money available. The venture capital industry, the private equity industry, the money printing in the US that has created literally infinite amounts of money available for people to do various things, has just gone off to the stars in the last 20-30 years, and that money wants to make more money. So that is what's happening in the world right now. So it is very, very difficult to put a stop to it. Now, things like what one said about, look, if you generate fake news in Sri Lanka, put a fake video about President Abdul, somebody should be accountable for that. 100% agree. I am all for social media is evil in many, many ways, very positive, many evils. We should be accountable for certain things. Technologically, very difficult to do without causing privacy violations, which is the enabling feature of social media. So, very complicated to solve, very clear politics, money, nothing else, and not easy. It's not very interesting.
I think very unpopular person said, you can guess who, that merely quantitative changes after a point become a qualitative difference. I think that's what we're seeing here. The increments that we had in terms of technology and so on, and now move qualitative. So we're in a situation which poses both challenges and dilemmas, and our panelists, including questions, have actually pointed out very clearly the kind of contradictions that we inhabit here. On the one hand, we are a small player, and therefore we have little control and power over the bigger picture. On the other hand, the bigger picture is not seen in terms of countries and power blocks and so on, as we have seen, but private entities and the for-profit kind of things. So you see the capital orientation here. And of course, in terms of the challenge, there is no way we can decline to join the party as it were. The party has already come. So I think there's a way we have to try to arrange the table in such a way that we have some control. But of course, the problem then is that individual table manners and all of that kind of stuff is not going to help repressive regimes as in the way they use this, as in malgovernance, disinformation, and so on. And I think that's where the challenge is. There needs to be some collective action. That's what I'm hearing. That goes beyond our own individual responses and awareness raising. That's why I think there are three ways our panelists are very clear in the kind of social work they do to raise awareness, to understand what these things are, and to be able to explain them. I think this is a long journey, a very important journey, which you can't decline, as in other situations we can't decline this. We are engaged in it, and engaged in it in a way that's very interesting. Being a small player who has very little power, our main argument that I hear is a common shared humanity. So you can see the contradiction there, that we are appealing to a larger sense of being human and values and so on from a position of weakness. I think that can also be a strength, the fact that we are doing this from a position of weakness, but on the basis of common understanding of humanity and what our goals are. But vigilance, I think, is important, and virtue must be its own reward from what I see, because you have to fight this business in many forms. So I think one of the ways is to be able to see, as Madam Martin also mentioned, how we can work out our own solutions, which are not generic in some way. And I'm hoping that our panel will lead in this process, and I'm sure the Bandaranaike Academy and all of its arms will help in continuing this discussion. I don't know if it was mentioned, but we propose to present for you a policy brief on this, which will actually summarize the main arguments, for which we will get the assistance of our panel. So that would be something that will be a lasting contribution, and something we hope you can refer, that can be translated and used, because we believe this is a crucial issue and concern which we have to engage proactively. We can't wait for the next 2-3 years for this qualitative change to become a qualitative disaster. So thank you very much to all of you.
This dialogue has underscored the importance of recognizing that cybersecurity is no longer just a cold technical issue, that it's an integrate interplay between technology, social dynamics, political will, and public awareness. Collaboration between governments, civil society, and most importantly, individuals is vital for this cause. And I sincerely hope that this dialogue served as an important step in this direction. For that, I would like to thank the panelists, Mr. Asela Vaidyarakara, Dr. Sanjeev Veeravatne, and Dr. Ruwan Veerasinghe. And a sincere thank you goes to Professor Arjun Parakrama for his incredible work as the moderator for the evening. In conclusion, I extend my sincere gratitude to the chairperson of the BNMF, Director Excellency Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, the Executive Director of the Bandaranaike Academy for Leadership and Public Policy, Dr. Tara Liman, the Chief Operating Officer of the BLPP, Ms. Eshani Pereira, and the BLPP team, for their guidance and assistance in making this event a success. Thank you, Professor Gamini Kiravalla and the BCIS team for their support. I would also like to extend a heartfelt thank you to FT and its editor, Mr. Nistar Kasim, for their gracious sponsorship of the event. Most importantly, I would like to thank all of you for making this event the success that it was. Thank you, and I hope you all enjoy the warm cup of tea that's ready for you.
For more latest news, subscribe to FTTV.